Introduction to the Science of Hadith by Ibn al-Salah al-Shahrazuri, 577 to 643 after the Hijrah. The most authoritative and influential work of Hadith science in existence. Category 15. Analysis, Parallelisms and Attestations. معرفة الاعتبار والمتابعات والشواهد. These are the matters which scholars take up in their examination of the condition of a hadith. Was its transmitter alone in transmitting it or not? Is it well known or not? The expert Abu Hatim ibn Hibban al-Tamimi, God be pleased with him, gave an example of the procedure for analysing reports. Hamad ibn Salama relates an unparalleled hadith, Hadith lam yutba'u alayh, from Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani, from Muhammad ibn Sirin, from Abu Hurairah, from the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is examined, did a reliable transmitter other than Ayyub relate it from Ibn Sirin? If that is found, it is known that the report has an original version to which it goes back. If that is not found, then does a reliable transmitter other than Ibn Sirin relate it from Abu Hurairah? If not, does a companion other than Abu Hurairah relate it from the Prophet? If any of that is found, it is thereby known that the hadith has an original version to which it goes back. If it is not found, the hadith does not have one. An example of parallelism would be that someone other than Hamad relates the very same hadith from Ayyub. This is complete parallelism. Al-mutaba'a at-tamma. If no one but Hamad relates it from Ayyub, but someone else relates it from Ibn Sirin or from Abu Hurairah, or someone other than Abu Hurairah relates it from the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, that is also sometimes termed parallelism without qualification. But it is inferior to the first kind of parallelism to the extent it falls short of it. It may also be called attestation, shahid. If that hadith is not related at all from one of the aforementioned lines of transmission, but another hadith having the same meaning is related, that is an attestation without parallelism. If another hadith with the same meaning is not related, then the absolute uniqueness, tafarrud al-mutlaq of the hadith is established. Hadith of this kind are divided into the rejected unfamiliar hadith, mardud munkar, and the unrejected, as stated above. When they say regarding something like this, Abu Hurairah was alone in transmitting it from the Prophet, Ibn Sirin was alone in transmitting it from Abu Hurairah, Ayyub was alone in transmitting it from Ibn Sirin, and Hamad ibn Salama was alone in transmitting it from Ayyub, there is an indication in that of the non-existence of lines of transmission for the parallels of the hadith. Be aware that sometimes the relation of someone whose hadith should not be cited as proofs when he is by himself indeed, he may be considered a weak transmitter, may be sometimes be included for the sake of establishing parallelism or as a citation of an attestation. Bukhari and Muslim in their books mention the hadith of a number of weak transmitters as parallels and attestations. Not every weak transmitter is suitable for this. For that reason, Daraqutni and others have said about weak transmitters, X, his transmissions may be taken into consideration, Fulan, yu'tabaru bihi, and Y, his transmissions may not be taken into consideration. Something like this was pointed out above. God knows best. The following is an example of a parallel and attestation. We heard the hadith from Sufyan ibn Uyayna, from Amr ibn Dinar, from Ata ibn Abi Rabah, from Ibn Abbas, in which the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, if they had taken its hide and tanned it, they would have derived from benefit from it. Ibn Jurayj related the hadith from Amr from Ata, and he did not mention the tanning. The expert Ahmed al-Bayhaqi gave a parallel version and attestation of the hadith of Ibn Uyayna. Usama bin Zayd transmitted a parallel version from Ata. Ahmed al-Bayhaqi related with his isnad from Usama from Ata from Ibn Abbas this version in which the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, said, did you not strip its hide off and tan it so that you could enjoy it? Ahmed al-Bayhaqi gave as an attestation the hadith of Abdurrahman bin Wala from Ibn Abbas. He said, the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, said, any hide that is tanned becomes ritually clean. God knows best. Category 16. Additions of reliable transmitters and the treatment of them. Ma'rifat ziyadat al-thiqat wa hukmiha. This is a sublime discipline which deserves careful attention. The authorities Abu Bakr ibn Ziyad al-Nisaburi, Abu Nu'aym al-Jurjani, Abu Walid al-Qurashi have been mentioned for their knowledge of the textual additions relevant to the study of law in certain hadith. According to what Abu Bakr ibn al-Khatib related, the doctrine of the majority of the scholars of law and hadith is that an addition of a reliable transmitter is acceptable when he is alone in transmitting it, irrespective of whether the addition is from a single individual who related the hadith once without the addition, and another time with it, or whether the addition is from someone other than the transmitter who related the hadith without the addition. This is contrary to the view of those scholars of hadith who reject additions without exception, and the view of those who reject additions from the original transmitter, but accept them from someone else. We cited above al-Khatib al-Baghdadi's relation from the majority of hadith experts to the effect that if some people give a hadith with a cohesive isnad, wasal al-hadith, and others give a loose one, arsalahu, the verdict is in favour of those who transmit it as loose, even if the addition rendering is cohesive in form from a reliable transmitter. I have arrived at the opinion that the material a reliable transmitter is alone in relating falls into three subcategories. 1. It contradicts and is incompatible with the rest of the reliable transmitters related. The verdict on this kind of rejection, as was previously stated, in the category of shadh hadith. 2. It contains absolutely no incompatibility with or contradiction of what others related, like the hadith, the totality of which a reliable transmitter is alone in relating, and through which he does not come into conflict at all with what others relate. This kind is acceptable, and al-Khatib has indeed claimed that scholars agree on that. Something similar was discussed above in the category on shadh hadith. 3. The cases fall between these two levels, like the addition of a word in a hadith which the rest of those who related the hadith do not give. An example is the hadith Malik narrated from Nafi' from Ibn Umar, that the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, placed the obligation of paying the alms tax of Ramadan on all men and women, free slave of the Muslims. Abu Isa Tirmidhi said that Malik was alone among reliable transmitters in relating it with the addition of the words of the Muslims. Ubaydullah ibn Umar, Ayyub al-Sakhtiyani and others related this hadith from Nafi' from Ibn Umar without this addition. More than one expert, including Shafi'i and Ahmed ibn Hanbal, God be pleased with them, adopted the addition and cited it as a proof. God knows best. Another example of this is the hadith, the earth was made a mosque for us and its soil was made a purifier for us. Abu Malik Sa'id ibn Tariq al-Ashja'i was alone in giving this addition, and the wording of the rest of the transmissions of the hadith is, the earth was made a mosque and a purifier for us. This hadith and similar ones resemble the first subcategory of addition in the respect that the version of the group relates is general and the version of the individual with the addition relates is specific. It contains an accidental difference and species of contradiction which causes the legal rulings contained in the two versions to vary. It was also like the second subcategory in that there was no fundamental incompatibility between the two versions. In the case of the addition which makes the loose hadith cohesive, ziyadat al-wasl wal-irsal, there is a contradiction similar to the one we mentioned above between cohesion and looseness. The question grows in importance because looseness is a form of impugnment in a hadith. Preference for the cohesive form and giving precedence to it is like giving a discrediting evaluation of a transmitter, jarh, precedence over an accrediting one, ta'dīl. It is justified on the basis that discrediting is given precedence because it contains an addition of knowledge, and the addition there belongs to the transmitter who gives the hadith as cohesive. God knows better. Stay tuned.